Fan of Zelda and looking for great Zelda-like games on mobile? Welcome! Hey G Nation, I'm Ben and today on Android Gamespot, the top 10 Android and iOS games like Zelda to play in 2022. In addition to the top 10 games, I included some bonus games worth playing, so watch the whole video till the end and let me know your favorites down below. Now, let's do this! Number 10. Oceanhorn 2. Oceanhorn 2 Knights of the Lost Realm is the second game in the series, but it's actually a prequel, taking place 1000 years before the events of the original game. This is one of the best looking Zelda-esque games on mobile, and you may be wondering, and rightfully so, why am I ranking it last? And the reason is, it's been over 2 years since the game released on iOS, but we still have no clue of if and when it will release on Android. The developer said that they have no plans for Android, but that things might change in the future. But if you want to know more about Oceanhorn 2, I did a special video where I cover everything there is to know, and I'll leave the link down below. Number 9. 19 Plus. First out on Steam, 19 Plus is a puzzle adventure game which has been described by the developer as a Zelda-like adventure. You play as Sir Lutalot, and you will battle your way through a bunch of dungeons that are packed with deadly traps, puzzles, and magical artifacts. The story is cheeky and doesn't take itself too seriously, along with some nice pixel art graphics and a decent soundtrack. The gameplay is pretty similar to the earlier Zelda games, as in exploring dungeons, fighting monsters, solving puzzles, and defeating bosses. The game definitely draws its inspiration from the 90s era, and it's a must-play for fans of the genre. Number 8. The Sword of Dido. The Sword of Dido is an action-adventure RPG where you play as multiple heroes in an endless fight against the villain, Mormo. This is a roguelike game, meaning that every time you die, you will start again as a new hero, but your past playthroughs will have an impact, so for example, you can recover weapons and loot from your previous fallen heroes. The visuals are very colorful and cutesy, making it feel like you're inside a cartoon, and a very good looking one. Weapon-wise, we have the standard sword and bow, but also some unusual weapons like a vinyl record or a golf club. The combat is simple yet challenging, the puzzles are fun, and the soundtrack is delightful. Finally, the price tag is correct, so if you haven't played this, well, you should. Number 7. Beyond Oasis. Beyond Oasis originally came out in 1995 exclusively on the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, but thanks to Sega Forever, the game was ported to mobile platforms free of charge. Beyond Oasis is a fantasy RPG along the lines of Zelda, where you play as Prince Ali, a magic and weapon-wielding hero, and you must battle an ancient evil that has risen in your land. The game is a lot of fun, and although the touchscreen controls can get annoying, you can easily bypass that by connecting your favorite controller. As of the ads, you can remove them by paying a couple of bucks, and they're actually not that bothersome, as you only have to watch them when you wanna save. Beyond Oasis is a blast from the past gem that I highly recommend to retro game fans like myself. Number 6. Stranger Things 1984. Initially released as a promo for the second season of the highly acclaimed Netflix show, Stranger Things 1984 is a retro top-down action-adventure game that oozes the retro Zelda games on the NES and SNES. You get to play as Elle, Hopper, and all of the other characters from the show in the fictional town of Hawkins. You'll be fighting enemies, unlocking characters, solving puzzles, and of course, visiting the nightmarish world of the Upside Down. There are 2 difficulty levels, and it's worth mentioning that the game has since moved from the Play Store to the Netflix Games Library, so if you're a Netflix member, you can play it for free. It's also the only way to access the game, but it's definitely worth it. Number 5. Oceanhorn. Hands down one of my all-time favorite Zelda-like games on mobile, Oceanhorn puts you in the shoes of a boy in search of his missing father. Oceanhorn sports some beautifully charming 3D visuals with great world and character design. The game's got towns to explore, mini dungeons with puzzles and secrets to uncover, as well as bosses to defeat in each one. Aside from being a Zelda-like game, Oceanhorn has an engaging story that you won't be ready to forget, an amazing soundtrack by the composers of the Final Fantasy and Mana series, controller support, and well above 15 hours of gameplay for the completionists. So if you haven't jumped in yet, I highly recommend doing so. Number 4. Moonlighter. Let's get something out of the way. Moonlighter is an awesome action RPG. The game, developed by Digital Sun and 11-bit studios, was originally released on PC and consoles and iOS before finally landing on Android, but it was definitely worth the wait. In Moonlighter, you run a shop by day and go exploring a series of randomly generated dungeons by night, slashing monsters and collecting loot to bring back to either sell or upgrade your weapons, shop or town. The roguelite elements are also present in the loot, and the game has a highly addictive mix of action RPG gameplay and town building. The mobile port is optimized for touchscreens, and the good news is all the DLCs are included in the cover price. Talk about a sweet deal. And before we check out my top 3 Zelda-like games on mobile, here are my honorable mentions. Number 3. Trials of Mana. Trials of Mana is a remake of the 1995 SNES action RPG of the same name, now with 3D graphics and tweaked for mobile. Now, Trials of Mana is an absolute joy. The graphics are colorful and charming, the action combat is a breeze, and the story, as well as the characters, are engaging and will keep you sucked in from start to finish. The downside though are the touch controls. They are, for the lack of a better word, awful. And what's maybe worse is that Square Enix seems to be aware of this, but instead of adding controller support, they thought an autoplay feature is what we needed. A real shame because 1. The high price tag for a mobile game, and 2. The lack of controller support is gonna keep many from experiencing this gem of a game. Number 2. Sparklight. In Sparklight, you play as Ada, who after crash landing onto the magical land of Jodia, must bring down the greedy evil villain, Baron. You will likely come across endless ways to explore the randomly generated lands in search of Sparklight, the game's currency that you can use to upgrade your weapons and gear. As with roguelike games, every time your character dies, you restart at the base where you can reverse engineer weapons, add patches for buffs, or get to know more of the villagers seeking your help. Sparklight features some gorgeous retro-inspired pixel art, an original soundtrack, cloud save, and the much appreciated controller support. And if you're not sure yet about buying the game, you can try out the demo for free. Number 1. Genshin Impact. Zelda Breath of the Wild is easily one of my favorite games of all time, and the reason I'm saying this here is that Genshin Impact is as close as it gets to a Breath of the Wild on mobile. The game is set in a diverse open world where you can interact with different environments by climbing, swimming or gliding, which is my favorite. The combat is action-based and there are a ton of quests to do, things to collect and heroes to unlock. Add to that a beautifully composed soundtrack, and all of this being a free-to-play game is really hard to beat. To sum up, there's never really been a bad time to get into Genshin Impact, but the thing is, the game gets easier to recommend with every update, so for new and returning players, Genshin Impact is an absolute must play. And that sums up my top 10 best Zelda games on mobile for 2022, and now I want to hear from you in the comments. If you could have one Zelda game ported to mobile, which one would it be? Of course, as always, if you enjoyed this video, clicking the like button does help me out a lot and I would really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing because I put out new videos like this every week. Also, special thanks to my YouTube members, and link down below if you want to support my content and enjoy some cool rewards. Once again, I'm Ben, thank you AG Nation for watching, and I'll see you next time, right here on Android Gamespot. Stay epic!